Welcome to the Books of Titans podcast hosted by Eric Rostad. Join him on his 15-year journey through the immortal books. He'll share what he's learning, explore profound ideas across time and cultures, and share the one thing he always hopes to remember from each immortal book.
Today I'm going to cover The Last Sweet Mile by Allen Levi. This is from book 27 from my 2025 reading list. Last year I covered another of Allen's books called Theo of Golden, and it is an extraordinary book. It is one that I've recommended to many people. I've gifted it to many people. We carry it at the bookstore at Landmark Booksellers, and it's sold well over 200 copies in less than a year. And it's just kind of taken our city by storm. It's taken the area by storm, and it's an incredible book. And so this is Allen's other book. And so I wanted to read this one as well. Allen is coming to Franklin, Tennessee here in a couple weeks for a couple events. He's going to talk about Theo of Golden. And so I've got Theo on the mind. I led a couple reading groups this past week about that book, one in person and one online. And so it was neat to read this book. And so my mind being on Theo is naturally contrasting the Theo of Golden book to this one that I'm covering today, The Last Sweet Mile. And there are a lot of neat connections, and I'll talk about some of those in this episode. But Theo of Golden is a novel. It's a work of fiction, whereas The Last Sweet Mile is a work of nonfiction. And it was written before Theo of Golden, but it tells the story of Allen's brother and his battle with a tumor. And that tumor ended up taking his life in the year 2012. And he was diagnosed an exact year before he passed away. And so what this book is, it's a letter. It's a letter that Allen initially kind of writes to his family. And it's a letter telling about Gary. And so let me just read a little bit from the beginning of the book here. So Allen does call this he says, this will be a long letter. And then he says this: regardless of what we call it, letter, book, portrait, memoir, this is not intended to be a biography of Gary's life. What I hope is that from reading these pages, you'll retain a clear recollection of who Gary was essentially, and you'll gain a better idea of the man he wanted to be and was indeed becoming. And I'll end the quote there. And so this letter is a combination of stories, conversations, song lyrics, journal entries, and memories. It was a stunning work, and stunning is the exact word I used after finishing Theo of Golden last year. And stunning is the word I wrote at the end of this one as well. It was brutal. You can imagine just the sadness of losing someone so dear to you. Heart-wrenching, but there was a lot of hope within the book as well. In the hope, you see a life well lived. His brother Gary lived a life well lived, and that comes through on the stories. It comes through in the conversations. It comes through in the song lyrics that oftentimes Allen wrote about his brother. And their closeness was one of the most remarkable aspects and features of this book. Their family in general, just the closeness, but the relationship that Allen and his brother Gary had was just incredible. And it was just fascinating to read about it. Allen called this the best year of his life, the year that he watched his brother pass away. And he mentioned that a couple times in the book, and it's such a startling thing to come across because you're reading about just utter sadness. I mean, there were points where I was choked up in literally in the sense of that word, like my throat hurt. It was just heart-wrenching, and yet it was the best year of his life. In just that closeness to his brother, the almost clearing of his calendar to just focus on his brother for that last year, he said that was the best year of his life. Let me read a few descriptions that Allen says of his brother. And the first part is just the travels that Gary did throughout his life. He spent a year working with deaf children in Jamaica. He lived a year with a non-English speaking Costa Rican family in San Jose, Costa Rica. He lived for 6 years in Spain. He lived for 6 months in the jungle of Peru. He resided for 2 years in Bosnia, lived in Macedonia, lived in Afghanistan off and on for 5 years. You get the point. He's a man of travel, and he would just go to these different places, but he always made a mark. Like he was a personality. He would just get to know everybody, and just he cared so deeply about those around him. Here are a few other things that Allen says about him. He loved to read. He lived contentedly as a never married single man. In everything he did and everywhere he looked, and in every endeavor he undertook, he saw the kingdom of God. He was the most interesting person I ever knew, and the kindest. End quote. And if you know Theo of Golden, you'll recognize some things in what I just read, especially on the kindness. A lot of people I talk to about the book Theo of Golden, they remark on the kindness of Theo, and that being such a strong thing that comes through in that book. So I want to highlight just a few things about this work. I'll keep this episode pretty short. I do want to share kind of my one thing at the end, the thing that stuck out the most to me in this book. And before I get into kind of 4 main things I want to talk about, there was a lot of sadness, but there was a lot of laughter. I don't oftentimes laugh out loud when I'm reading a book, but there was one scene in this book where Allen is in Scotland. His brother Gary comes to visit him, and you have to read about the scene, but it is just, I was laughing so hard. And then the sadness, it was so sad. It was very sad as well. So you kind of run the gamut of emotions in this book, but it was amazing. The first thing I want to highlight is that of small things, and what Allen calls the sacredness of small things. He also, at one other point, he called it the heroically unheroic. And let me read one part here. And this comes from, this is one of the journal entries that Allen shares. And if you get the book, it's pages 184, the bottom, to 190. And it's just, if you don't have time to read the book, like, just buy the book just for these 5 or 6 pages here. They're incredible. But let me just read one paragraph from this journal entry. Increasingly, I am convinced that the kingdom of God moves forward most enduringly when ordinary people do small things kindly and well over a long period of time. End quote. Again, if you've read Theo of Golden, you know that is a major theme. That there's not this. You're not looking at a man who's done these big, massive things and has tried to just create grand spectacles, but you witness a man who has done small things over and over. Most of the time, they were unknown, they were unheeded, they were not published, they were not proclaimed, but they were done quietly. And I just love that. Increasingly, I am convinced that the kingdom of God moves forward most enduringly when ordinary people do small things kindly and well over a long period of time. I just love that idea. The second thing I want to highlight is that of pleasure. And so I want to read what Allen is talking about with what Gary thought in terms of pleasure. And so I'm going to start with a sentence and then continue on to a paragraph. The paragraph's rather long, but stick with me. It is gold. If you had asked Gary, he would have told you that pleasure, in whatever form it takes, the taste of chocolate, the presence of color, the telling of stories, is a signpost to God. And then we get into the paragraph. To Gary, heaven was present with 1,000 daily voices in this world, which explains to me why he found life so endlessly interesting. In the grain of a cherry burl, the intricacy of a feather, the aroma of cooking meat, the adrenaline rush of jumping off a mountain to ride a thermal, the unfathomable span of a night sky, the timbre of woodwinds, the mating call of turkeys, the restlessness of a soul in search of God. In all of these, Gary found reason for contemplation and delight. He witnessed them with quiet, adorational attentiveness and kept inventory of wonder. For him, the heavens and the earth, the neighborhood, the forest, the field, the city, the quiet room, even hell itself declared the glory of God. And I'll stop reading there. I love that he kept inventory of wonder. Such a beautiful, beautiful statement. The third thing is the intentionality of Gary. There was just so much that he did with such a high purpose in his life, and that would extend from his hospitality, just always having people over, cooking for them, his gift giving. He would never let anyone leave without giving them a gift. Oftentimes the gift was something handmade, woodwork or something that he would give them. And then just the intentionality, he would go to the local high school that had 1,500 students, and he would get copies of the yearbooks and then just scan them. I mean, just look at them and get to know all of the names of the students. And then as the students were arriving every day, he would stand at the door, the main entry into this high school, and would greet them all by name. He just got to know them and just would greet them by name, just was wanting to know what was going on with them. He would talk with them. He would pray with them. And just that level of intentionality was astonishing. To go about attempting to learn 1,500 names just for the ability to make them feel like they are known and to call them out by name was just incredible. Last thing, of course, has to be about books. This is Books of Titans, after all. And so here's a part about books. Gary would encourage you to read good, or better yet, great books. I hope you have books like the ones he treasured, ones that stir your heart and deepen your appreciation for life. While words may have many and obvious limitations, their mastery and careful use do much to shape our thoughts and give clarity to our experiences. They did that in Gary's life, on everything from how to call a turkey to why one should fast and pray. End quote. I love that. The last thing I want to highlight here is my one thing from this book. And it's just this aspect of living life to the fullest. You see a man doing that. And it's not what you usually hear about living life to the fullest. It's not the pursuit of self. It's not the pursuit of vast wealth or a career or all of these different things that we're constantly told are what lead to life in the fullest. But here's a man who served, who did things quietly, who lived and believed in the sacredness of small things, the heroically unheroic. And yet you look at the impact of his life, you look at the trail that he left, and it's an incredible thing. And that's one of the things that Allen just keeps talking about in this book. Not this, and I guess to where these small things led to a grand life. They led to a big life, but it wasn't an attempt to do big things that led to a big life. It was not even an attempt of sort, but just a natural way of living in these small things, the sacredness of these small things, and doing that every day, every moment of every day. I love that. I want to close just highlighting one thing on this is page 143, and this is another journal entry from Allen Levi. Sunday, March 25th, 2007. As I write this, I am at a Starbucks in Augusta, Georgia, en route from last night's gig to Sumter, South Carolina, to tonight's in Athens, Georgia. Well, that Starbucks in Augusta is where I met my wife, and we met on December 28th, 2008. So little more than a year and a half after this journal entry. But that just gave me delight, just coming across that and just picturing Allen there sitting at that Starbucks a year and a half plus before I would walk in and see my future wife in there, and just a cool little connection point there. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at eric@booksoftitans.com. I would really love to hear from you if you've read this book, if there's something that you want to share about this book, maybe something that stood out to you. If you have a general comment, please leave that at substack.com. It's actually booksoftitans.com. That's where I post this podcast, and I would love if you shared it there just so we could kind of get a conversation going so other people could see what you wrote there. I am currently doing a deep dive into Theo of Golden, again, just kind of in preparation for Allen being here in February. So with Theo of Golden, there's a number of books mentioned in Theo of Golden. So I've purchased those books. I have them ready to read here. Some will just be like one poem in the book, but I just want to kind of read some of the things that are mentioned in Theo of Golden. And after that, I will be getting into Plato. And I bought this big Plato book. It's 1,700 pages, and it's all the collected works of Plato. And I think I'm just going to read through it. I thought initially of just reading some of his major works, but gosh, why not? It's Plato. So I'm gonna just start and just see where it goes. But I would like to try to just read everything that's in that book by Plato. You can follow Books of Titans on Instagram or Twitter, and that is at Books of Titans. The website is stock full of resources to help you find the best books and to create your own reading list. That is at books.booksoftitans.com. So remember, the podcast and Substack and the articles, that's at booksoftitans.com. My reading lists and all of that are at books.booksoftitans.com. I'll be back next week to discuss another book or idea about reading. And until then, keep reading, keep learning, and keep listening. I'm out.